We're back on Common Knowledge looking at common cards for the Pauper format. First card of the day is Gatehound from Ravnica City of Guilds. I played this time. This was the original Ravnica. Hell of a time. The idea that we were all thinking about guilds. I mean, we had multicolored cards before, but to have them codified into specific guilds. It wasn't, I guess it wasn't Ravnica, but it was Guild Pack, so it was the same block. When I was like, oh yeah, Orzhov, that's the clan I like. That's the guild I'm with. That really shaped the kind of Magic I wanted to play. Anyway, Gatehound is 2 and a white for a 1/1 dog. He's no longer a hound, he's just a dog. And creatures you control have vigilance as long as this creature is enchanted. Well, that's interesting, right? Bogles. It's a common deck, not necessarily a fantastic deck anymore, but still a relatively common one. Still can be very powerful. I have a Bogles deck that it does work. It does work. The problem is the creatures that you play in Bogles decks are 1 mana, and they all have hexproof or something akin to hexproof. Paying 3 mana for a creature that is it's kind of a worse Bogle. I mean, yeah, it gives everything vigilance, but is vigilance really the keyword you want for those kinds of decks? You know, it's nice to have your armadillo cloaked guy be able to block and attack, but 3 mana for this is a little steep. And you have to burn one of your enchantments on this guy instead of on the creature you really want it to be on. So I think that's enough that's going against this card that it's not going to quite cut it here. But Gatehound, man, I do have some fond memories of you and the block you came from. We'll give you a 2. I think a 2 is just fine for that card. Ooh, Looter Ilkor. Have we done Looter Ilkor, or have we just done something that loots? I think we've done something that loots. But let's talk about Looter Ilkor. It's a 1/1 core rogue for 1 and a blue. It's got Shadow. We've definitely talked about Shadow on the show before. This creature can block or be blocked by only creatures with Shadow. And whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent, you draw a card, then you discard a card. It's great. No notes. This is awesome. Goes in, pokes an opponent, you get a little card selection out of the deal. If you have a graveyard strategy, you get to fuel that. But otherwise, this is just a solid card. I think most people tend to. This is not a perfect comparison, but I think most people, myself included, tend to play the Modern Age these days, which will do a similar kind of draw discard without even having to deal the damage. And then you get to transform it into a 2/3 flyer, which is pretty better stats for the same mana cost. But you know, Looter Ilkor is a solid little dude. I think the only real downside is that you're paying 2 mana for a 1/1. It's pretty easy just to ping it off the table. But at the same time, it's kind of just a 1/1 and doesn't really bother anybody. They kind of just let it through. You get a couple turns where you tick off a little damage. You get to do a little bit of card selection. It doesn't seem that scary. And then you load them up with something that makes them scary, and you hit an opponent for a lot of damage. I like him. I don't see him in Pauper. I definitely have this guy in one of my commander decks because he just goes under the radar and does some good work. What do you give him, though? What do you give him in this context? He's better than Gatehound. Doesn't help that much, does it? I'm going to give this guy a 4. I think I'm going to give this guy a 4. I think he's pretty solid. Not quite playable, but I think he's pretty solid. Oh, did I mention originally from Time Spiral? Time Spiral block. I think I have even fonder memories of Time Spiral than I do of Ravnica. It's close though. Final Vengeance is a single black mana for a sorcery. It says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, you sacrifice a creature or an enchantment. And you get to exile target creature. That ain't bad. That ain't bad. Sorcery speeds feels a little slow. I understand. But you'll find mono black sacrifice decks that are happy to drop a creature and exiling a target creature from an opponent. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I believe there are some instant speed variants of this, which makes this less appealing. They might not give you the exile. They might give you the destroy instead of the exile. And I think you'd still end up playing those over this because the instant speed just matters a little bit more in cases like these. But it's not a terrible card. I'll give it a. It's probably better than the Ilkor. I'll give it a 4.4. Man, yeah, it's got some uses. It's got some pretty solid uses. Eaten Alive, is that that's the one from Foundations, right? Eaten Alive. Well, it's in Foundations. I don't know if it was. Yeah, it's from Innistrad, but yeah. So it's. Well, that also. Well, that's also a sorcery, but you know. And you can't sacrifice an enchantment to it. You sacrifice or you pay a higher mana cost. But it also takes out Planeswalkers, of which, at the moment, as of recording, there are none in Pauper. But there are some other abilities that are like that. I'm pretty sure one of them's at instant speed. Anyway, let's talk about Nessian Asp. It's 4 and a green for a snake. It's 4/5. It's got reach. And you can also pay 6 and a green for Monstrosity 4. What is Monstrosity? Well, if this creature isn't monstrous, you can put 4 +1/+1 counters on it, and it becomes monstrous. So you can't keep doing that, but you can at least put them on once for a lot of mana. 7 is a lot of mana. But if you got nothing else to do with your mana that turn, turning your 4/5 into a 8/9. It's pretty good. Gives you a little bit of, it's not card advantage exactly, but it is flexibility. It is, hey, this is something that halfway works in the mid game and halfway works in the late game. Reach is not a good enough ability to really make this work. I think if it had trample and was like a mana cheaper, maybe we'd have more of a discussion about it. But it's got a couple points to it. Just not quite there. Almost, but not quite there. What is that, our 4th card? Yeah, that's our 4th card. Can't even read my hash marks anymore. We'll give this a 2.3. Spindrift Drake is a single blue mana for a 2/1 Drake. It's got flying, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you sacrifice this creature unless you pay a blue mana. Yeah, that's going to be tough to justify. It's cool that you got a Savannah Lions that flies in blue. It's crazy, right? That's what value? Blue doesn't get creatures that good. And then you read it and you go, oh, that's why. Because I have to keep paying its mana cost every turn. At your upkeep, too. So, you know, did you want to do anything else with that mana this turn? You haven't even drawn your card to know what you want to play yet. And yet you've already spent one of your precious manas on this. Yeah, it's not great. I mean, it's essentially 2 mana for this thing because you're paying it once to put it on the field, and then your next upkeep, you're at least paying it one more time to do the 2 damage. So is it really a Savannah Lions, or is it a 2/1 for 2? It's kind of a 2/1 for 2, and that's more disappointing. There's probably something you can do with the sacrifice that makes this a little more fun, but at the end of the day, you're potentially paying 3, 4, 5 mana over the course of this thing's life to keep it around. And if you paid 5 mana for a Savannah Lions that flies, you should not feel good about that. We're going to give this a, I can't quite give it a 1. I think we'll give it a 1.1. maybe just for the art. The art's pretty good. Yeah. Hey, it's a Betrayers of Kamigawa card. I'm gonna love something with Kamigawa. Let's talk about Waxmane Baku. For 2 and a white, it's a 2/2 spirit, and whenever you cast a spirit or arcane spell, you can put a key counter on this creature. You can pay 1 and remove X key counters from this creature to tap X target creatures. All right, I think I've talked about it before. I'll show it off someday, I imagine, but I have a Kamigawa block Pauper deck. Like it is only made up of commons from the Kamigawa block. It is not very good, but it is a spirits based deck that has a lot of these kinds of creatures in it. It's green red, so it doesn't play this creature, but it does play the red and green Bakus. This is part of a cycle. So again, whenever you're casting a spirit or arcane spell, you put a key counter on your Baku, and then the red and green ones are okay because the green one gives you a bunch of mana for it, and the red one I think gives you like a fire breathing effect for it. So that's kind of cool. I think tapping creatures, yes, it's a white thing to do, but it's also a kind of disappointing thing to do in the grand scheme of things. 3 mana's also a little too much for this. Yeah, it's just one of those times where you look at Kamigawa cards and you go, yeah, they're a little underpowered, aren't they? And this one's no different. Pretty disappointing. I'm going to give this a 1.4. 1.4, and we'll just keep on moving to Skybridge Towers. I was looking at this card a day ago, I believe. I was looking for Azorius Guild Gates, and I found Skybridge Towers and went, are you? Oh, no, you're not, but you're close. You're almost what I was looking for. Skybridge Towers is a land. It enters tapped. It taps for white or blue, and you can also pay 2, a white and a blue, tap it, and sacrifice the land to draw a card. So these lands, this is, we've seen a number of dual lands at this point. These kinds of dual lands from Streets of New Capenna, they're almost interesting. Again, not having the land types is a real downer. But drawing a card, even at the cost of 5 mana, and losing this land. So you're not only paying 5 mana, you will then be down mana for the rest of the game. But if you're on turn 6 or 7 or 8 and you're out of cards in your hand and you got mana to burn but haven't been able to do anything with it, you can do worse things than drawing a card. I think these lands are okay. They generally don't make the cut in Pauper. I haven't really seen one of these ever be played. But it's not a bad ability. It costs too much, but you're getting a dual land. Like you're fine just having a dual land, right? And then, it does just kind of have that little extra gravy on it. It's fine. I think it's one of the better dual lands we've seen on this show. And for that, let's give it a 4 point. I'm going to give this a 4.9. It is so close to being playable. But I think there's just a few too many cards, too many lands that you'd use over this one. But it's one of the better one of these common dual lands that enter tapped. Ooh, more Kamigawa cards. Is it my birthday? No, it was my birthday earlier. It was October 14th was my birthday. So we're off by a little bit now. But Raving Oni Slave, excuse me. Raving Oni Slave is 1 and a black for a 3/3 Ogre Warrior. Great stats. What could go wrong? Well, whenever this creature enters or leaves the battlefield, you lose 3 life if you don't control a demon. Demons, generally, pretty expensive creature type. So you're probably not going to have a demon on the field when you play this. So you're losing 3 life and you're putting a 3/3 creature out. It's not the worst thing. You're still getting pretty good stats for that. But then if an opponent lightning bolts this, you lose another 3 life, and that feels real bad. They've made some cheaper demons. I'm pretty sure in Final Fantasy, Demon Wall is an uncommon. It is. So that is your cheap demon these days that you see in Standard, because demons also matter for a number of cards in the current Standard that's out right now. But yeah, you're not going to find a whole lot of cheap demons in Pauper. You know what you are going to find? Changeling Outcast. Single black mana. It's every creature type. That includes demon. So, should you play these 2 cards in your Pauper deck so you can get a 3/3 out on turn 2 and not lose any life? No. The answer is no. The answer is that this is just a 3/3 vanilla creature, even for 2 mana. That's pretty decent, but without some kind of keyword or some kind of evasion on this creature, it's not that great. And having to rely on having a demon to not lose the life is rough too. The ogres are interesting in the Kamigawa block, and having that kind of demon ogre synergy is kind of cool. There's a number of ogre cards that care about having demons out, but this card is not all that great. It is a proud member of my Champions of Kamigawa block cube, but it's probably nowhere else. Toll of the Invasion is 2 and a black for a sorcery. It says target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card, and then you amass zombies 1. Whew. There's a lot of these kinds of cards that let you look at your opponent's hand and you discard something from it. Most of them have some kind of condition to them. I mean, this one says non-land. Most of them will be non-land, but your gold standard here, as almost always, it's in Standard now. It's been in Standard for a long time. Duress costs 1 mana. It's basically the same thing. It's got to be non-creature though, so that is a little worse for sure. But it's 1 mana, not 3. And yeah, this gives you a 1/1 zombie, or if you already have a zombie army, then it gives you a +1/+1 counter on it. But 3 mana for that is asking a little much. I mean, you do get the choice of the card, so it's better than like a virus beetle, I suppose, that's also a 1/1 body that makes them discard a card. But that costs 2. This costs 3. I think you just got what's the other one that came in Edge of Eternities? Temporal Intervention, something like that. Temporal Intervention. Yeah, there we go. Looked at her. So this is also a Pauper card. It's a little bit like Duress in that it can cost 1, but a non-land permanent had to leave the battlefield or something be warped. And you're not going to generally get to do that on turn 1 unless something crazy happens. So even though this can be any non-land card, I think you'll generally find that you're going to play Duress more. This does show up in Pauper sometimes because there are blink decks or bounce decks that can play this. But again, the really nice thing about a card like Duress is you can play Duress on turn 1. Your opponent has a full grip of cards, or most of a grip of cards at that point, and you get to choose the scariest one and get it out of there and just mess up their plans. If you're playing this on turn 3, who knows if they even have a hand at that point? And is that useful anymore? I guess it's still useful because you get to amass regardless. But I think this is trying to do too much in a single card, and it makes its cost just go a little higher than you'd want it to be, and it just kind of puts it out of playability for most things. So we'll give this I'm going to give this a 2. And we'll move on to our final card of the day. Ooh, it's a hot one. Foundry Inspector. It's 3 mana for an artifact creature construct. 3/2. And artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. This is good. This this shows up in plenty of different artifact decks. It costs a little bit much for what it is, for its stats anyway. But you're playing this for the artifact cost reduction, and that matters. Like paying one less, especially if you get this thing in multiples, and even in multiples, it will discount the next copy that you bring down, which then discounts the next copy that you bring down, and then if you have a fourth one, it's free. But imagine getting to play Eager Wellsprings for free or for cheaper. Imagine getting to play Tithing Blades for only a single black mana. There's so many things you get to do with this. You already have your Mirror Enforcer who has affinity for artifacts. Well, you've already got one for the affinity because this is an artifact creature, and it's reducing its cost by one. So you're already getting to pay for 2 of that 7 mana plus the lands that you got. You're kind of starting to talk. This has some real uses. It's certainly a commander card. You see it in Commander Legends, Commander Masters here. They've put in a lot of things. Brothers War makes a lot of sense. A very artifact focused set. But this guy rules. This guy's really good. But he is like just a vanilla 3/2 for 3. So he's not all that great for combat, but you are just getting so much value out of him turn over turn. You'll find opponents will target this guy just knowing the kind of value that you're going to get. And then they're wasting a removal spell on a vanilla 3/2 in some sense. So he works on a lot of levels. Man, what do you give this guy? Hey, I mean, he's better than a 5. He does show up in Pauper decks. He doesn't show up in a ton of them, but he does good work when he is in there. I think you generally will find people are playing 2 copies of this more than they're playing 3 or 4. But even at 2 copies, he does some solid work. I'm gonna give this guy a 7. I'll give him a 7. And you know what? I just can't quit you. I'm going to do one bonus card for today. It's Inoc Wayfarer. It's 1 and a green for a 1/1 dog scout. And when this creature enters, you mill 3 cards. Then you can put a land card from among them into your hand. If you don't, you put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. We've seen this guy before. I do not remember what the one is called from. I believe it's Brothers War that it was in. But it's the same thing. I don't think he's a dog. I think he's a beast. But he has the exact same text here. This is not a terrible strategy in Pauper. You will find these kinds of cards in Pauper decks, in the Dredge style decks specifically, in Spy combo these days. The problem is this word right here, 3. You mill 3 cards. Because what if I told you could play, almost like I've searched this guy before, what if you played a Satyr Wayfinder instead, which reveals the top 4 cards of your library? And that it doesn't mill them. This is revealing, and then you put them in the graveyard. It's essentially milling them. But and it also doesn't give you the potential +1/+1. Rarely do you need that creature to be a 2/2. You'd rather just put more cards in your graveyard. No, not Villager. He's Town Greeter. That's what he's called. Not Village Greeter. Town Greeter. Yes, that's the one. Town Greeter. This is just another Satyr Wayfinder. I think we've talked about him before when we saw town cards before, but you mill 4 cards, and then you can put a land. But then if you have a town, it gets a little bonus thing. So that's Inoc Wayfarer's problem, is that you only mill 3. And if you're in a Dredge deck, you want as many cards in that graveyard as possible. So if you're paying 1 and a green for a 1/1 that does this kind of ability, they're just cards that are slightly better than this guy. And it's really sad because he's cool. I played him in Tarkir Dragonstorm Limited. I had a Abzan deck that absolutely was playing this guy on turn 2. I had multiple copies of it, and I was happy to see every single copy. But in Pauper, when you have all of these kinds of effects available to you at common, you're going to go for the ones that get you 4 cards instead of 3. And that's really his downfall. So, man, he's close to good though. If Satyr Wayfinder and Town Greeter weren't in the format, this guy would be the next one up. So we'll give him I'm going to give you a 4.2 and say, sorry, we cannot play with you. There's just slightly better options. I wonder what that Brothers War one's called. I'm not going to look it up, but you know what? I am going to look it up. I'm going to look it up because I should just be able to copy this text, go to advanced, put it in the text, and see. Nope. He's something slightly different. That's not the one I'm thinking of. All right. We can do this another way. Now that I have to know. Brothers War. He's green. And his mana value is equal to 2. Blanchard Prowler. There's our boy. He's an elemental, not a beast. Sorry. But yeah, he mills 3 cards, put a land. If you don't, put a 1/1 counter on him. Same guy, just not a dog. Elemental instead. Elemental matters for some decks. But again, yeah, you don't play this guy either. He would get the same score. Same score as our dog. Dog friend there, 4.2. So, hey, you kind of got 2 bonus cards today. Anyway, that is enough for one night. It is pretty dark in here. It is night when I'm recording this. But we'll see you next time on Common Knowledge. See you later.